Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Yeah. If you notice, I've shaved. Did it yesterday. You probably saw it on yesterday's show, but I shaved again this morning. Remember I told you I was joining the Amish community, and, I still plan to do it, but I'm probably going to do it without a beard just because my face started just itching terribly. Started getting ingrown hairs, and anyway. I'm here. We have, I believe, one of the greatest shows we'll ever do. It'll be fun. It'll be enlightening. Hopefully, it'll spark some conversation with you all. Over the next 3 days, we're going to cover what's going on in the sports news cycle, but I'm going to have a mammoth conversation about fixing the NBA. And as you listen to me and Jay Skapinac, who's in studio, and I'll show you here in just a minute, but first I just want the camera focused on me so that when the ladies come into the show, they feel that comfort and warmth and just titillation that, at the beginning of the show. So camera's focused on me. We'll show you Jay Skapinac in a minute. Just sit tight. I'm just trying to please the ladies before we bring in the rest of the crew. But anyway, we're going to talk about fixing the NBA. But as you listen to these ideas, you're going to see how they can be applied to all professional sports and how they would improve all professional sports. And so give me a second, and we're going to have to break this up a little bit. Can't unpack the entire idea today. Going to unpack about half of it today, another half of it tomorrow. And tomorrow will probably be a tiny bit more important or more original of an idea. It's more central to my idea of how to fix the NBA and fix professional sports. But we're also, again, we're not going to ignore what's going on in the news cycle. And so in the back end of this show, you guys know I can't resist talking about Deion Sanders. And he's retiring Shedeur Sanders' number at Colorado. Holy cow. Deion's ego, and all these guys' egos. I tie it to, and I didn't, we may get into this just a little bit if these guys working with me want to have time and can do a little other. We may put up the video of Bill Belichick and his sugar baby and how she was on the field during their spring practice, spring game, or whatever. But all of these coaches, egos out of control. They're no different than the kids in terms they're making so much money that they just can't help themselves. And they all think, wow, how couldn't I be special? Look at all the money I'm getting paid. How come I can't do special things for me and my kids and whatever? And so Deion Sanders somehow has figured out a way to tie Shedeur Sanders to Travis Hunter, and they had a jersey number retirement ceremony yesterday for the Buffaloes. And Shedeur Sanders, who played 2 years at Colorado, led the team to an incredible 13-12 record over the course of those 2 years. His number's being retired. Travis Hunter, I get. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. But I'm going to save some of that for later. The other thing, I didn't know it until late last night, maybe 1 in the morning. I was scrolling through Twitter. I was like, the WNBA had its draft last night. I was like, oh, man. Last year, the WNBA draft was a huge, huge deal. And Paige Bueckers isn't quite Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark drove a lot of attention to the WNBA draft here. It was a big deal last year. This year, they had kind of a different vibe, a different energy, and Paige Bueckers was at the forefront of that. She brought her sugar baby to the draft, and it's her teammate, Ozzy. We'll discuss that, but, if you're wondering why Paige Bueckers is being so warmly greeted into the WNBA, it's because she likes to scissor as well. And so there you have it. Caitlin Clark still has a fiance, as best I know. They haven't quite converted Caitlin Clark just yet. They got her on the black woman thing, but they don't have her scissoring as of yet. Stay tuned. And then I'll end the show. I've got an update on Stephen A. Smith. Man, I am under Stephen A. Smith's skin. I am under the skin of the people supporting Stephen A. Smith for the presidency, and they're starting to push back and smear me, and they're using Stephen A. groupies and friends. I'll get into it at the end of the show, but there's a video out about, something about what Whitlock's hiding, and there was a former sports writer who now works for the Pennsylvania or Philadelphia Prison Association or something, Department of Prisons or whatever, John Mitchell, smearing me on some woman, I think Karen Hunter, I think used to be a friend of Stephen A. Smith. She's got some Sirius XM radio show. Anyway, I'll get it. You don't want to miss the end of the show when I'm talking about Stephen A. Smith. You also don't want to miss the beginning of today's show, which I'm about to get to. But before I do any of that, I want to tell you why I feel so spry and why I'm looking so good and why I'm so energized for today's show. Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. Try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start today for just a Twinkie. You guys know what a Twinkie is if you're from, I've had some Twinkies. Twinkies are $20 bills, as well as, those Hostess treats. Just for a Twinkie, $20. 3-week quick start, perhaps relieve some of your pain. 70% of the people that try the quick start circle back because Relief Factor is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, relieving inflammation. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800, the number 4 for relief, or visit relieffactor.com. All right, ladies, you tell me in the chat, or just, are you ready for me to introduce Skap into this conversation? Hold on, nope, they're not ready for you, Skap. They want to look at me for a little bit longer. So let me start the conversation here. It's this NBA conversation. We will bring Skap in. Skap, say hello to the fans, the audience. Can we put the camera on Skap just briefly? I don't want to run too much of the female audience off. But yes, Jay Skapinac, Skap Attack, in studio with me. Round of applause for Jay Skapinac. Help me out here, Luke.
Thank you.
Very honored. What do you think of our studio, Skap?
I am blown away. This studio is immaculate. It's gorgeous. I have to say it's the best studio I have ever been in, Jason. And I am
this is
thankful.
Your first studio you've ever been in. Thank you. Thank you, Skap. I appreciate that.
I know. I'm very thankful to you for having me involved in this conversation. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and hopefully I can titillate the audience a bit as well with you. I'm hoping.
Titillate. That's a very. I wasn't expecting you to use that in the first 10 minutes of your appearance here. But anyway, Skap, just keeping it real. I was sitting there thinking about the NBA, and I've had this idea in my head for a long time, and I was like, I'm gonna call Bill Simmons. Bill and I used to be friendly before he went completely woke, and I still like Bill. He's my favorite sports columnist of all time. He and Dan Le Batard, two of my favorites, but they've all gone woke for the money and to stay on the good graces of the establishment. I've stayed the course with who I am. I'm kind of a jerk and kind of stubborn and stick to my ways. I got this biblical worldview, and I got this, toxic masculinity. But anyway, I thought about calling Bill because Bill has no reason to dislike me other than, it's scary to be associated with me now because I actually believe in the Bible. Can you imagine that people that believe in the Bible, we're actually scary. But anyway, I was thinking about Bill, and then I said, no, man, I got Jay Skapinac. He comes on the show. He does a great job. Your last appearance was great. And I was like, I don't need to share this idea with Bill. I need to share it with my audience and hope that you guys are interested, entertained, and find these ideas and this discussion interesting, and then apply it not just to the NBA, but the rest of sports. And so where we have to start is there is a problem in the NBA. I think some people think, no, it's just you old guys. You hate the NBA because you want to protect Jordan. You don't like three-pointers. You want to diminish LeBron. I don't have those kind of personal problems, because it is true, most of these players with all that woke BS they've done, I don't like them as much as I used to. But when I look at the game and look at the product, there's a competition problem. Would you not agree? Skap's younger than me. I don't know if you guys can tell that. I'm probably, I still look mid-30s, late 30s. But Skap is younger than me from a different generation. He's at least, let me do the math. He's about 20 years younger than me, I think. Anyway, Skap's from it. Am I right that there's a competition problem in the NBA?
100%, unequivocally. I don't think anyone that watches it can really argue with it, at least people that have seen what we have seen. And that's the problem, Jason, that I want to address first and foremost, is this labeling of old heads, the curmudgeonly geezers that are swinging on their porches and yelling for kids to get off their lawn. Somehow, some way, we have been lumped into them because why? Well, we have the audacity to want to see the product be as good as what it was when we were watching it way back in the day. Because it's undeniable the product is worse today than it was in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s. So we're not hating. We're trying to reestablish the greatness of what this sport was when we fell in love with it.
Well, I think that most fans believe, and this is across the board in all sports. You can look in football, you can look in baseball. And let's put up the graphic of what's wrong with the NBA. It's non-competitive. That's the problem with the NBA. They have a competition problem. Can we put the graphic up or no? Because I want to go through these deals. Yeah, it's non-competitive. They're plagued by load management issues. Not intense until the playoffs. Players and fans, this is another problem. Players and fans don't like each other. I don't think it used to be as bad this way as it is now. There's diminished connectivity with the customers. Obviously, there's a lack of defense. I think the television partners are dissatisfied with the ratings, traction, and relevance of the NBA. I think, clearly the NBA brand has been savaged domestically with the anti-American sentiment. I think the super teams and player movement and zero loyalty has hurt the NBA. Because of the one and done, the players are underdeveloped brands when they enter the NBA, and they never reach their full potential. The ones that, like a Steph Curry, played at Davidson for 3 years. A LeBron James is a unique case because of just how celebrated he was in high school. But the rest of these guys don't, bring that up here, don't get to fully develop their brands. And so the other last little thing, and particularly want you to react, I think the playoffs, and that's where we're headed into, and that's part of the timing of why I wanted Skap in this week. The playoffs aren't nearly as exciting as they used to be because there's virtually no chance of an upset in the first, second rounds of the playoffs because they're best of 7 series. And so, are you old enough to remember Dikembe Mutombo? I think it was with the Nuggets, and they pulled that upset.
Yep.
Yeah. Never happened again because it's a 7-game series. You can't pull an upset really in a 7-game series. But have I covered all the things that are wrong with the NBA? Did I leave anything out?
I think you did a pretty solid overview there. We can dig in more if you want to.
Go ahead.
Expand on that.
Yeah.
I think you really highlighted the disconnect from the fans and the players and just the overall product. And you touched a couple times on the competition issue. And I think, we've discussed this, you and I have on my channel as well, ad nauseum, I guess you can say. The competition issues that are facing the NBA have reached such a critical mass right now that we need to do something drastic, which is what your plan is really calling for. Something drastic to shake things up, to change really the track of where we're at. And quite frankly, look, the NBA has proven itself that it is not above taking drastic action. They've at least tried to do it with the All-Star game. The All-Star game, which has become more putrid than ever before. The All-Star weekend in general can kind of serve as like a microcosm for the NBA issues as a whole. Drastically dwindling viewership and ratings, players that just don't care. And what has the NBA done now in recent years because of it? Well, they've tried these gimmicks. So we have the ultimate gimmick, I think, that we're going to unpack over the next 3 days to try to spur some change.
I'm a little bit offended by your use of the word ultimate gimmick. Because what I'm suggesting here, what we're going to suggest, I don't consider it a gimmick. I consider it, and you guys help me out. I think the NBA has cancer and the tumor has to be removed. And so I know it, oh, well, look at they generate $15 billion a year and blah, blah. That's inflation. That's the printing of money. That's TV contracts that don't really reflect the TV ratings and the actual traction of the league. And I keep saying, and I kind of have a slight twinge of regret after looking at what they did with the WNBA draft last night and just how it was another turnoff for me. But I keep saying, like, no, this WNBA, this Caitlin Clark thing is going to eventually undermine the NBA. And so either you can see that there's a problem and see that more problems are just down the pike, and you can take drastic steps to improve or head off these problems, or you can sit in a state of denial and pretend like, nah, we'll be fine. If we just ignore it long enough, it'll go away. And not to get too political, and I don't want to turn anybody off, make them change the channel or whatever, but it's like the NBA is doing what, in my view, black people have done as it relates to family structure. Let's just don't talk about it. Let's pretend like single mama, matriarchal culture, dad's out of the home, dad not married to the mom. Let's pretend like that's none of the problems and we'll blame it on something else. And the NBA has done that and has directed a lot of attention. Well, if Charles Barkley and the TNT guys would just talk more positively about the league, that'll fix it. And that's just not true. Basketball is a great game. These athletes are incredible. And if we just put them in the right system and revamp the system, do things that spur competition, do things that connect the fans and empower the fans, because I think that's one of the critical things, Skap. I think sports fans in general, NBA fans in particular, feel like they don't matter anymore, that they certainly have no leverage. There was a time when, as a sports fan, you thought, well, I just won't go to the games, and that'll show the team, and I'll express displeasure, and we'll protest, or we'll do all that. But this thing has totally flipped, where players are getting fans tossed out of arenas. You talk too coarsely to them. You shout things at them. The dynamic between players and fans, there's an imbalance that's dangerous and toxic and undermines developing and growing the game. And so these ideas that I'm going to unpack are about empowering the fans, leveling the playing field a little bit, making NBA fans more important than any other fans in any other sport. And I think that would be very powerful and help the NBA grow. And so there'll be, and I'm about to get to these ideas. I don't want to spend too much time just previewing, but I think that we think, and I leave alone over the next few days, I'm going to leave alone the rules and the three-point shooting and all of that. Those things can be tweaked. Those conversations are going on. Everybody knows, hey, it's hard to play defense and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to stick to some bigger picture problems and solutions. And so won't get into this today, but just want you to understand where this is all headed. I think the key to fixing the NBA regular season is revamping and improving and making the off season dang near as important and as compelling as the regular season. There are things you can do in the off season that involve empowering the fans that will directly improve what goes on in the regular season. You can do things in the off season that give the fans a level of power and influence over the players that will improve the regular season. And I'll just leave it at that. When we get towards the end of the show, I may tell you a little bit more about day 2, part 2 of this conversation about the NBA, because it's probably the most unique, original, provocative idea about fixing the NBA and fixing sports that you'll hear. I'll preview a little bit more at the end of today's show, and then we'll go full bore into it tomorrow. But today, we're going to start by talking about my ideas for fixing the regular season as it relates, before we talk about, here's my ideas for how the offseason fits into that. So let me take care of a tiny bit of business, tell you how to protect yourself if you spend a lot of time online like me and you don't want predators gathering your online information, your IP address, and following everything that you're doing online. You need a friend and you need a device and an app like ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like putting all of your passwords and credit card numbers on a huge billboard for the whole world to see. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, etc., your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data, passwords, bank logins, credit card details, etc. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. A smart 12-year-old could do it. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. Super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's easy to use. Fire up the app, click one button to get it protected. Now you're secure. Someone like me that is a target of leftists, is a target of people that hate my biblical worldview, someone who's a target of right-wing nationalists, religious grifters. Again, I catch it from both sides. And that's why I use ExpressVPN. I want to be protected on the internet. You can visit ExpressVPN. Just go to expressvpn.com/fearless. That's expressvpn.com/fearless to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months for free. expressvpn.com/fearless. All right, Skap, let's dive into my regular season suggestion. And we're going to start with load management and fixing the schedule. And I am suggesting that we go to a 69-game regular season. Let's cut 13 games from this season. And I know the first thing people are going to say is, oh, that's 13 less games times 30. Let's do the math on that. 13 times, I think that's like 200 and some odd less games. Let me do the math. This is in real time here. I'm not a math major. 13 times 30, that's 390. No, it's not 30. Yeah, it's 13 less games times 30 teams. That's 390 less games total. Oh my God, how could you make that up, Jason? How could, everybody's playing less games? Or is that, nope. I think I've done the math on that wrong. That's 13 times 15. It's 195 less games because there's only 30 teams. 195 less. How can you make that up? And my idea that I'll unpack tomorrow about this specific content they can create during the offseason that will replace those 19 games. But I think removing 13 games, playing a more condensed schedule, it takes load management off the table. Don't you have to play 65 games now to be eligible for NBA awards?
Yep, that was instituted, I think 2 years ago. This is the second year now of that kind of iteration within the league awards. And already, Jason, there's pushback on that. Already, people are talking about tearing that stipulation out that, well, these guys should be eligible no matter what, regardless of how many games they play. So there's already crying, not only from within the league and the players, but the media that coddles and protects these players are still trying to take this rule away.
I don't think anybody could complain about a 69-game schedule. I don't think LeBron James at 41 or 40, whatever, I don't think he can complain about that. It takes the load management excuse off, and I think it makes the games more valuable. Scarcity is part of the NBA's problem because now all of these games are basically on TV somewhere. If you want to follow your team, either online or on one of these extra platforms, you buy the package on Netflix or Amazon Prime, you got your ESPN, you got your TNT. There's almost too much content available and the games seem meaningless. You reduce the schedule, I think you increase competition. And so here's how I would come up with a 69-game schedule. In your conference, and then and I would make divisions important again. We have 6 divisions in basketball, but no one ever talks about them anymore. It's almost like it's divisionless. I would go back to emphasizing the divisions, and so everybody would play. There'd be 5 teams in 6 different divisions, and so on the East there would be 3 divisions, West 3 divisions, obviously. And so you would play the other 4 teams in your division 4 times. That's pretty much what they do now, but there's virtually no emphasis on the divisions. So that's 16 games. You play all the other teams in your conference, that would be 10 other teams. You play them 3 times. Pretty much what they do now, that's 30 games. So now we're at 46. You play all the 15 teams in the other conference 1 time. That's 15 more games. 46 times 15 is 61. So now we have 8 more games to play with. So everybody in the East would play one other division from the West. It would be like football. Like when the Chiefs are in the AFC West and they play the NFC East, everybody, the Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders all play the NFC East. Same thing we'd have in basketball. You play some division in the opposing conference in a round robin where now you play home and away with one team. Now we're up to 66. Now here is my idea for the additional 3 games. And could we put this on screen? This is my rivalry week idea.
This is one of my favorite components, by the way,
really?
Of this plan. When you laid this out, I was very intrigued and excited about this.
Yeah, and so I don't have my graph. I'm gonna have to look at this on screen. I thought we had it's not printed out here for me, what my breakdown is for rivalry week, but I think I have it in my own notes here in my laptop. But so every team will have a rival that they play during NBA All-Star Weekend. We eliminate NBA All-Star Weekend. That thing can't be fixed. Dust it. Don't need it. We're only playing a 69-game regular season. And instead, the week that had been dedicated to the NBA All-Star is dedicated to best-of-3 series between you and your rival. So that's a 3-game deal, and players and teams will get bonuses. If you win that series, there's a bonus for that. If you win it 2-1, there's a bonus for that. If you sweep that series 3-0, there's an additional bonus. I got to go to my email here and get my breakdown of who they're. I know these are all going to be within the conference, your rival, except for one, the Celtics and the Lakers. That will be cross-conference. That's the biggest rivalry in the NBA. I don't think that can be fixed. Yeah, I think, there we go. This helps me out tremendously. Well, no, that's isn't it. I wanted the matchups that I had suggested for NBA rivalry week. Here we go.
These are primarily geographically.
Yeah, I got it right here. Anyway, so the Celtics and the Lakers would be the only cross-conference rival. Then, so let's do it with the Eastern Conference. Cavaliers versus the Pacers. Brooklyn versus the New York Knicks. Philly versus Washington. Atlanta versus Charlotte. Orlando versus Miami. Bucks versus Bulls. Pistons versus Raptors. During this week, from Sunday to Sunday, there's a 3-game series going on between these teams. You space out the games. Well, this is rivalry week, and you try to really, because this is what the NBA doesn't have. It doesn't have rivalries. It doesn't have, when the Bears and the Packers play each other in football, it's a really big deal. When the Cowboys and the Washington Redskins, and I guess still the Washington Commanders, that's a really big deal.
Ravens, Steelers.
Ravens,
still a
huge deal.
Right.
You don't, only one that you really have in the NBA is Lakers Celtics. We're not going to disturb that. That would be the showcase every year. Everybody else is just focused in closest team to them in their conference. Then you go over to the West, and it's OKC versus Dallas. It's Memphis versus New Orleans. It's Golden State versus Sacramento. It's Clippers versus Suns. It's Portland versus Utah. Denver versus Minnesota, and the Houston Rockets versus the San Antonio Spurs. Why is this your favorite idea?
One of my favorite elements, Jason. And the reason is because like you said, there are no rivalries left in the NBA today. It's too buddy-buddy. That's one of the major turnoffs for fans. Like, think back into basically every other era until this one, circa, say, around 2011, 2012, when, LeBron James took his talents to Miami and South Beach. All of these guys want to be friends. They all are friends off the court. They're all making exorbitant amounts of money, and they want to go on each other's podcasts and do social media with each other. And they don't really care about competing ultimately at the end of the day because, well, they're just rich celebrities anyway, so what does it truly matter? Under this model, though, the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. I think the more that you showcase these kinds of rivalries, try to build upon them, put them on TV, talk them up, maybe you play at their egos a bit, and these guys want to outcompete their most closest geographical counterparts. So this is, I think, a great step in the right direction. And also, look, you've eradicated the all-star issue, which is one of the major dilemmas in the NBA. Like I said, they've been trying to fix this crap sandwich that they have on their hands for, about 5 years now. Well, you've just taken care of that as well. So I think this is a great element, Jason, to add.
So NBA All-Star Weekend is a weekend-long commercial that NBA players don't care. Mm-hmm. That's what it is now. That's what it's probably been for 10, 15 years. A weekend commercial. Hey, let's go watch these guys half-heartedly play basketball as they jack up three-pointers and dunk the basketball. Now we replace it with Rivalry Week, and there's a financial bonus tied to this, and we'll talk a lot about this tomorrow, that a lot of my suggestions here are tied to financial bonuses for competing well as a team, for competing well as an individual. And so this also, and I just want to, you'll get a fuller explanation about this tomorrow, but fans would, as it relates to Rivalry Week, they would vote, season ticket holders and selected home media people at the end of rivalry week, they would vote and rank the play. Like, let's go with Celtics Lakers. That's easy. Who was the MVP of that series, that 3-game series? Who were the most valuable players? You'd rank them 1 to 12. There would be a voting by Boston Celtics fans, and there would be a voting by Lakers fans. And so how much of a bonus that a player gets will be somewhat determined or heavily determined by this fan voting. Was LeBron James the MVP of that series? He's ranked number 1. Is Luka ranked number 2? And there's so much. There's, let's say, $4 million or $3 million for LeBron if he's the MVP, ranked number 1. There may be $2 million for the second guy, $500,000. There's some kind of slotted bonuses, 1 to 12, based off fan voting at the end of that series.
Great idea.
It's
because you're adding. Not only you're adding an element of their pocketbook, which we know these players care a lot about, but also you're playing to their vanity. Well, I want to be ranked number 1. I don't want this guy to be ranked number 1 over me. So you add that, hopefully, again, competition, reinvigorating that level of competition. And as you said at the original point, which really kick-started this whole idea, re-engaging fans, bring them back to the table. This takes care of all 3 of those elements in one fell swoop.
If you give the fans some bit of power, some voice, because they feel voices. Look at what's happened to the media. It's supposed to represent the fans, but the media has all become celebrities, and they all side with the players, and they have more in common with the player. Like Stephen A. Smith, and this isn't hate, this is just me talking fact. He's making $20 million a year. He's like the athlete now. And that's why you hear so much animus towards the fans from the media, because they think they have more in common with the players and at the salaries that some of us have earned and are earning. To some degree, we do have more in common with the players and the athletes. And so no one speaks for the fans. And so I'm trying to give the fans some voice in this. And when they have a voice, they're going to be more passionate, more invested, more likely to watch every game. If you're a fan sitting there like, hey, a season ticket holder, a regular attender of Pacer games or Lakers game or Celtics game, and at the end of a series, you get to have some level of say-so on who gets paid for performing during that series, I think you're more apt to watch intensely, passionately, and it's going to create more conversation among you and other fans. It's going to create debates among you and fans. It's going to create debates on television. I can't believe the fans in such and such chose Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum as the number 1 guy in that series, or they got so mad because Jaylen Brown got kicked out of game 2 and did something stupid, they actually ranked him 7th. And he only got 200,000. You increase conversation and you increase investment.
Plus, it will engender more feeling of positivity from players towards fans. So they'll be kind of playing towards the fans more. You know, like in the movie Jerry Maguire, when Jerry Maguire's begging Rod Tidwell to placate the fans more, to play to the fans, to be, nicer, have a better relationship with the media. That's kind of what we need the players to stop, to drop this feeling of animosity towards the players. I mean, you saw
towards the fans.
Yeah, towards the fans. I'm sorry. You saw Kevin Durant at in the aftermath of the disaster of this most recent All-Star weekend. He was talking about, well, why do we even play the All-Star game? Everybody hates it. Everybody just wants to talk crap on it. Like, why even do it anymore? We talked, you and I, recently about the Mind the Game podcast, the new iteration of LeBron James's podcast with Steve Nash now as the host. And you played the clip when I was on about the two of them discussing, well, what's really wrong with fan engagement with the game today? The way those two were brushing it off was, we need to educate the fans more. We need to teach the fans like how to watch today's product and enjoy it the same way they enjoyed, the products from previous eras. Well, why not look inward and say the product that we've produced today isn't as good? That's why there's the criticism coming from the fans.
And our attitude towards the fan is so toxic, so negative, that the fans are more prone to be critical. Again, you throw the first punch, someone's going to punch back. And that's what fans have been doing. I'll give you the better example. Russell Westbrook, his entire brand, or a big part of his brand, is he'll bicker with fans. And you can't call me this nickname. He has multiple confrontations with fans. He's a symbol of the animus the players have towards the fans. Trust me, under the scenario we're unpacking here, and under the scenario we're going to be talking about as relates to the offseason, there won't be another Russell Westbrook. There won't be another guy just running around roughshod looking to have negative engagement with fans. His skin is going to toughen up, get thicker, because he will know, like, hey, my brand can't be I hate the fans, because at the end of this rivalry week series and at the end of the season, the fans are going to have some say-so over how much money goes into my pocket. Now Russell Westbrook is looking for positive engagement from the fans. And I know many of you, this is the problem with some of the idolatry and just stupidity among a segment of fans that think, hey, I got to defend the players at all costs, and they can do no wrong, and anything that happens to a black athlete is always racism. I think they're going to snap out of that and move into reality of like, hey, these athletes are making 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars a year. They're not on my side, and if they let it out fully that like they hate us, I'm good with that, because I'm going to have some say-so. I'm going to get to express exactly how I feel about them, and these types of ideas will improve the relationship. It will incentivize the players, the athletes, to have a better relationship with fans. They'll sign more autographs, and they'll be more tolerant of fans being fans. And so fans being fans means, hey, I'm going to yell some stuff at you. That's been going on in sports for 120 years. It's not until these players started making 20, 30, 40 million dollars a year and starting their own media companies that now oh my God, you can't yell at athletes. You can't haze or harass or troll athletes. Yes, you can. That's what fans do. They've been doing it. They've been throwing tomatoes at bad actors and athletes for the history of sport. If you remove that level of passion, you're actually hurting your pocketbook, you're hurting fan engagement. And again, I'm not for fans doing any and everything, but this attitude that, a lot of these athletes who should be overwhelmed with gratitude. NBA, NFL are genetic sports. You have to be so tall to have a good shot at playing in the NBA. And so guys should, a guy like Steven Jackson that, was involved in the Malice at the Palace, their entire mentality should be, man, I'm so grateful that I was blessed to be 6'8" and didn't have to really learn much in school. And now I'm making 15, 20, $30 million a year. I'm so grateful. I couldn't care less that some fan yelled something at me, because I'm going to walk out of this arena, go to my mansion, put my headphones on, take care of my baby mamas. That's where this idea is coming. I'll give you the final thought on the rivalry week, and then I'll try to keep it moving.
Yeah, no, I love it. I want general animosity between players back again. That's one of the things that I feel like I missed, that even, yes, you highlighted I'm a little bit younger than you, but I mean, I remember Lakers and Kings back in the Shaq and Kobe heyday. They got into a fight, a big fight, in a preseason game. Like, where is that level of animosity within the NBA? It, quite frankly, it just doesn't exist right now. So how can we drum that back up? How can we reinvigorate that level of genuine and healthy hatred, I'll say, between players and between teams? We need more of it. I think this will help with that.
Yeah, the animus needs to be between competitors, not between fans and athletes. And if you look at ESPN or even Fox Sports, they love to spend all their time talking about so-and-so, what some fan got kicked out of the game, and here's the player talking about what this fan yelled at me. And
Jason, even they were kicking people out for chanting "Fire Nico" at Mavericks games. So even the general manager has thin skin these days. Like, you couldn't even bring in a sign that says "Fire Nico" without getting kicked out.
So I have another layer to this, because we're going to kill the in-season tournament as well.
Also crap.
Yeah, another
Great
stupid
garbage.
idea. We're going to kill the play-in games that are going on this
Crap.
week. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I want to tell you about a movie that's out from our friends at Angel Studios. Angel Studio puts out movies that do not violate our Christian worldview, that do not demonize men, do not demonize Christian values. They're the people that made The Sound of Freedom. They got a new movie out, The King of Kings. It's about a father telling his son the greatest story ever told, and what begins as a bedtime tale becomes a life-changing journey. Through the vivid imagination, the boy walks alongside Jesus, witnessing his miracles, facing his trials, and understanding his ultimate sacrifice. The King of Kings invites us to rediscover the enduring power of hope, love, and redemption through the eyes of a child. High-profile cast of voices: Oscar Isaac, Pierce Brosnan, Mark Hamill, Ben Kingsley, Uma Thurman, Forrest Whitaker. That's just a few of the big names. There is also beautiful animation, and it's the perfect film to enjoy with your family this Easter season. I encourage you to see The King of Kings. It's in theaters right now. Get your tickets today at angel.com/Jason. That's angel.com/Jason. So, and this will probably be the toughest pill of all my suggestions for the NBA to swallow. NBA playoffs with these 4 7-game series. What do we love about the NCAA tournament? What do we love about the NFL playoffs? We love upsets.
Single game, you just mentioned 2 single game formats. Anything can happen, upsets, right? Not with 7-game formats, though.
And it's no different than what I've said to you all about the NCAA tournament and NIL, and how all the money is drifting towards the power conferences, and they undermine the NCAA tournament because now upsets are less likely to happen. The best players that used to play at Valpo, and they would pull off some upset, or Loyola Chicago, or even Butler University that went to back-to-back NCAA championship games. It doesn't happen anymore because Gordon Hayward would never stay at Butler for 4 years, or even 3 years, maybe even 2 years, because he would show his talent as a freshman, and then he'd be poached by the bigger school. And so we just went through an NCAA tournament where basically number 1 seeds advanced to the Final Four in both the men's and women's brackets. We just saw this offseason. I think the leading scorer in women's basketball, I think, was a kid at Florida State, and she's already signed a deal to go play at South Carolina next year. Again, less and less upsets in sports, and it's not, as I told you, sports has always been about, hey, if you're the little guy and if you're underfinanced, or you're not, you don't have all the equipment or facilities, but if you put together, if you're smarter at recruiting, smarter at development, build a better, more cohesive team, if you're a better coach than the other guy, you can overcome the Goliath. That's always been the message in sports. It's like it levels the playing field and the little guy has a chance. It was an expression of an American ideal. Hey, you're born into the ghetto, you're born to parents that aren't super wealthy. You have a shot in America if you play the rules smarter than everyone else. They eliminated that in the NBA by having the first round playoff series be best of sevens. It's just out of sheer greed. Hey, we can put together more content. And you know, it doesn't matter if it's boring and monotonous. It doesn't matter if it eliminates the little guy from pulling the upset like Dikembe Mutombo and other examples we've seen that. I want to go back to a 3-game first round playoff series. And I can hear people in the NBA, man, we ain't sacrificing all that money. Our TV partners would be irate with us. Just can't happen. You can't put that toothpaste back in the bottle. Yes, you can. And I'll tell you why, because we're going to generate so much money in the offseason that you can do this. And we're going to offer these TV partners so much better product in the offseason. It's like, yeah, we'll play less games because look at our TV ratings. I think this year during the regular season, I think they averaged 1.8 million per game.
Yep, 1.77 mil.
Yeah, that's just, you condense the season to 69, you condense the play. Now we're talking about when you get to the first round of playoffs and it's a 3-game series, if you can get those ratings up to 3 million or 2.5 million, and when I tell you the second half of this whole deal, you'll understand how we can drive ratings during the off season with NBA content. You'll have to hear that tomorrow. But you can go back to a 3-game playoff series, and you can go back to having the possibility of an upset. And second round, I want to get that down to 5 games. These playoffs go on way too long, and there is no anticipation of an upset for the most part. It's 7-game series that most of them are 4-1 or 4-2 or 4-0 in the first round. You can go back to 3, 5, and 7-7. That's the NBA I remembered and loved. That will the 8th seed now feels like, hey man, we catch them with a right hook in game 1. Mm-hmm. Now we got a chance. So we catch them with a right hook in game 2. It just gives them hope and makes them compete harder. I think you're going to see a better product if you condense the playoffs.
I mean, I would give you no pushback on that, especially because, like right now, well, because we have this idiotic play-in thing going on this week, which is already, you had a pretty chaotic, frenetic final day, which was pretty enjoyable. I think there were a lot of things up for grabs in the Western Conference in the final game of the regular season here. Like 4 seed lines needed to be sorted out. So you could have just breezed right into the playoffs with that momentum. Instead, well, let's just kind of pull it back here, sit around for a week, play this stupid play-in tournament. Then we're going to get into the first round. And Jason, this thing is interminable. Like the first round is going to stretch on for almost a month probably, because some teams are going to get swept. Then maybe one series might go 7. So we just have to all sit here and wait. Teams will literally not play for 10 days maybe while we're waiting for some of these other series to finish out. We need to get through that, find a way to get through the first round, and really let the juiciness start unpacking into the second round. And I think this is yet another good element of this plan that you have.
If you think I'm crazy or you see holes in this, and I know the immediate response is just, hey man, the NBA is not going to sacrifice all that content. The TV networks aren't going to sacrifice all that content. Hey, they're locked into deals with these television networks based on this or that. I get all that. I'm talking about if you want to fix basketball, if you want to grow your game domestically, if you want to rebuild your brand, if you want to inspire better competition, consider these types of ideas. The thought that, hey, I'm going to take an Advil and fix the NBA. No, you're going to momentarily, that's like Adam Silver. Hey, we're going to paint the floors all these colors and it's going to look kind of like a video game. That'll fix it. It fixes nothing. I'm not saying the NBA is in critical condition and it's going to die. What I'm saying is the NBA is where baseball was at one point. It had a lot of relevancy, drove a lot of conversation, was important to the culture, and it's never recovered from basically the player strike in '94 and just too many games, a lack of urgency, people's attention span, and to where people more follow the standings in baseball than actually follow the game. And the NBA has gone to a place where it's all highlights. It's all, hey, let me catch some highlights on Twitter, let me catch some highlights on Instagram, Facebook, but no one's actually digesting the games. You gotta make the games more valuable, more important. I used to love watching an entire NBA game and keeping my own stats because I didn't trust the stat keepers. Now, it's like, well, I can get a 3-minute version and the best highlights of the NBA. And if that's all they want to be is a highlight league and then a podcast league where every former player has a podcast and they sit around and talk about the old days and when there used to be real competition, have at it. But if you want to fix this, there are tough decisions you have to make. And I think condensing the playoffs is one of those tough decisions that could produce a lot of fruit.
I mean, to spur any kind of great change, there has to be some kind of sacrifice made. So we're not necessarily saying this is an easy implementable plan, which we can go over more of the strategic elements involved with that in upcoming days. But like you said, are you willing to sacrifice to repair the product? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then let's start making some bold and difficult decisions and get this thing back on track, because the product is significantly injured right now overall. I think to your point, just think back to Chicago when Jordan was playing and the NBC, those Sunday games, those regular season games with that amazing little jingle that NBC had. People were tuning in to those all the time. Jason, when I grew up, I bought League Pass every year. Like, I had League Pass for 10, 12, 13 years because I wanted to see all of the out-of-market games. I wanted to see every game that I can manage to get my eyes on from a nightly basis. Now, to your point, local fans aren't even tuning in. So we need to do something to engender competition and to titillate, to use that term again. Titillate the fan base, get them back involved. And this plan, this is what it's going to be, I think.
Here's my last tweak to the regular season, and I know there's some of you, hey, well, you got to change the rules to eliminate 3 points. All of that stuff I think people know, and again, we're not addressing that today. I'm talking about sort of original ideas that could improve the NBA. This one here, this last one that we'll go over today as a change to the NBA season and scheduling, I think is easy to do. And I think it's the right thing to do, whether we're talking, if the NBA only takes one of these suggestions, this is the easiest one to implement that I think would have significant impact. NBA Finals. The NBA, because of the fall of NBA All-Star Weekend, doesn't really have a showcase event. It doesn't have a Super Bowl. It has the NBA Finals, which is nice, but that's East versus West. There's a lot of traveling involved in that. And so because the newspaper industry and so many of these media companies are under financial stress, fewer and fewer outlets can afford to send someone to Boston, LA, back and forth on an East-West NBA Finals. And so here's my solution. The first 2 games of the NBA Finals should be turned into the NBA's Super Bowl. They pick a neutral site with a dome stadium, let's say Las Vegas, for instance, and you play the first 2 games at a neutral site. Cities bid on it. Hey, I want the first 2 games of the NBA Finals. I want to bring it to Miami this year, and we can play it in this dome stadium, 40,000 seats. And so now it's kind of like the NCAA Final Four. You got a Friday, Sunday, or a Thursday, Sunday NBA Finals. Media outlets know where this destination is a year, 2, 3 years in advance. People can book hotels, people can book their flights. It's less expensive, and outlets can say, hey, I can't, have my reporter crisscrossing the country east west, but I can send them to the first 2 games of the NBA Finals out in Las Vegas or whatever the destination is that year. Some city will be like, oh, wow, we have the first 2 games and 40,000 fans can pack into our stadium. That's filling up a lot of hotels. Now you have people bidding for the NBA Finals, and now you have an event where you can attract more of the media. You can hold end of the season type press conferences, state of the NBA. It's like Roger Goodell every year holds a press conference at the Super Bowl. All the media is gathered there. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of media people there. It's a gigantic platform for Roger Goodell and the NFL to talk about their product and speak to everybody at once in a massive way. The NBA needs that. First 2 games, neutral site, in a stadium, 40,000 people. And then the final 5 games of that best of series go back and forth between East and West. Couldn't do 2 straight at some site because let's say you're the number 1 seed, you play 2 at a neutral site, you win the first 2, then they go to your house and you win the next 2, series is over. There's never been a game at the opposing arena. It's got to be 1-1-1-1-1, and the team with the number 1 seed gets Game 7 if it goes that far at their home arena. I can't for the life of me figure out why the NBA hasn't thought of this type of idea and implemented this type of idea.
And I don't, honestly, the only pushback I would see would be maybe from ownership saying we want those 2 games to our gate. But I mean, what are we talking about here? Like $1.5 million in tickets, $2 million in tickets, maybe $1 million in concessions, nominal. And ultimately, we're talking, economics here. I mean, sports, bottom line, it's a money-driven thing, just like everything else. So this is a way to make exponentially more money than the amount that they're going to lose, the nominal amount that they'll lose on the gate. So I don't see, what the drawback would be from this, as well as, again, don't want to harp on it, but fans engagement. That this is going to be a good thing for the fans. Like you said, they could pre-plan. I mean, this just, to me, it's just a no-brainer. Like you said, why has the NBA not thought of this yet?
Look, let's say you're a Sacramento Kings fan and you kind of suspect, we may never make it to the NBA Finals. But I can go to the NBA Finals in a 40,000 seat dome stadium, easier for me to get tickets than if it's the, Celtics versus Golden State and you're a Sacramento fan and Golden State's got 19,000 tickets available, or I don't know what their arena holds, 20,000. And their fan base is going to gather up it's much more difficult for an outside fan to get inside an arena and have the NBA Finals experience. This is in June, the NBA, kids are out of school. You can take your kids to the NBA Finals. You and your boys, a summer trip to wherever the NBA Finals are. Now it's a weekend. This could be the showcase event that the All-Star Game used to be. That used to be the major gathering spot. It's been eliminated now, or it's been destroyed. Players don't even want to go, let alone media, let alone fans, really. They've turned all of that, the NBA All-Star Game, into too much of a rap concert and all of that. This, to me, is a way to showcase the actual game and put the game front and center in front of a bigger platform, on a bigger platform as you can create. NCAA basketball does it with the Final Four. NFL does it with the Super Bowl. Major League Baseball doesn't have this. National Hockey League, I guess their All-Star weekend to some degree, but they don't have anything like this. Adam Silver and the NBA, you need to be original, be leaders. If you know, I know you stepped out there and you were the leader of the George Floyd, Jacob Blake movement. How did that work out? Hey, we're the leaders. We got Black Lives Matter planted on our courts, and our players are wearing Black Lives Matter shirts and all that. You're willing to be original and a leader in some sort of Marxist deal that pisses off 50, 60% of your fan base.
Arguably more.
Yeah. Why not be a leader in an original idea that doesn't piss your fans off, that isn't a divisive issue, that isn't, you know, steeped in Marxism? Is the NBA watching where the culture has shifted and moved to? And I say this, and I don't want to go too far off because it's a distraction. I start introducing these ideas and analogies that are away from sports, and it's a distraction. But I just looked at Saturday Night Live, this clip that's floating around the internet, and I get this weekend, Saturday Night Live did a skit cracking jokes on gay men buying babies. They did an entire skit on this. That should be an indication of where the culture is moving. And so all the cultural leadership the NBA and the NFL has invested in, all of this Marxist, Black Lives Matter, it all didn't work. It just put distance between you and the fans. If you're willing to step out there on stuff like, and I know, oh, that was a moral issue, fighting for Jacob Blake, who sexually assaulted his baby mama and who pulled a knife on police. Fighting for him was a moral issue. Fighting for George Floyd, he was such a saint. He had just enrolled in a college graduate program. He was in rehab. He was going to be a potential governor or cancer researcher. And so we had to fight for George Floyd because he had just started a 12-step program to kick his fentanyl habit. That's the moral hill you want to die on, and you were willing to die on. Why not try some less risky, less stupid ideas that could improve your life? And I know I just distracted the hell out of everybody, and some of you are, Black Lives Matter, you just don't understand. But I'm sorry, sometimes I can't help myself.
To your point, though, I mean, I think, look, sometimes you take a stand on something, and sometimes it works out for you, and sometimes it doesn't. I think the socio-political kind of direction that the country looked like it was moving in a few years ago, many professional sports leagues got out in front of that, planted a flag alongside it, and it kind of blew up in their face like it blew up in a lot of other sponsors' faces around the United States of America. And there does seem to be this kind of backpedaling movement now, by and large. But to your overall point, which is the point that you're making, is let's get back to the games. Let's focus on the games. Let's celebrate the game. Let's find a way to shift the attention back to the games, because, you know, you made the analogy about baseball earlier, and I think it's a good one, because too much of the news cycle now in the NBA is devoted to off the court things. Even if they're not controversial necessarily, even if they're pertaining to the games, it's not about the games. What's the biggest story this year in the NBA? Likely the Luka Doncic trade. Like, didn't really happen on the court, obviously. What's probably the other biggest news generator probably of the year, in my estimation, in the NBA, is the continued destruction and downfall of the All-Star game. How many people and how many videos and news was generated about how crappy the All-Star game was this week? Mainly because, look, it was terrible last year. So the NBA threw everything they had into this, Jason. Silver had Steph Curry in the offices trying to dream up some of these changes and stuff to try to make some semblance of a watchable product. Failed miserably, even worse arguably than last year. So how can we get it back to the game? How can we showcase the actual games that matter, make this Super Bowl-like event? And I bet you even the players would take this. It would maybe mean more, be more impactful for the players even, to go to one of these huge jacked up stadiums that holds like 50, 60,000 people, 3 times as many people, 4 times as many people as they're used to being in front of. Extra media. It would give that Super Bowl week kind of feel to the players, and I think it would make it for more of an impactful game to them as well.
So those are the changes I'm suggesting for in the season, and they're easily digestible. I think it's tomorrow. we're going to move into my really unique idea. And it's the idea driving all of this that will be connected. And it's about empowering fans so that they have some level of say-so. I think we looked it up, and NBA salaries this year, there's going to be about $4.5 billion, I believe, directed towards NBA salaries. That's a lot of money, man. And I'm not talking about in any way reducing that. I'm talking about how do you give that $4.5 billion to the players? Is there a better way of handing over that $4.5 billion to the players and hand it over to them in a way that incentivizes them for more competition? And I think the ideas that we're going to get into tomorrow are talking, how can we take that $4.5 billion, what I believe is maybe 39–40% of the NBA revenue, how can we take that $4.5 billion and make it $7 billion? How do we make it $6 billion or $8 billion? How do we have more pie to cut up? I have the solution. And it involves the offseason. And it involves, hey, we're going to take right now this $4.5 billion, and we're going to give $2.5 billion of that dollars to you based on your regular season salary. And then we're going to take the other $2 billion in salary and give it to you in end of the season bonuses. $2.5 billion. Hey, LeBron, you're playing for the Lakers. We're going to give you $25 million for the regular season. And then at the end of the season, there's a potential $20 more million you can earn, or $25 million you can earn based off of bonuses, how your team performs, how you perform, and how do the fans feel about how you perform? How would the fans rank your performance in relationship to the other 12 players on the active roster? This is, I'm going to unpack it tomorrow. And then how do we build content off of the decision-making of how the bonuses are paid at the end of the year? Is there content? Again, think about what Deion Sanders and Colorado have done, where they've just immersed themselves in digital content, and they've turned Colorado into a reality TV show. And think about what I've said about all of sports now that TV is in control. This is just reality TV. This is just another television show. The NBA, it's MASH. The NFL, it's Cheers. Major League Baseball, it's Happy Days. National Hockey League, it's Good Times. You know, it's just a TV show. It's a reality TV show. It's Real World. It's Desperate Housewives. It's a reality TV show. There's a way to produce that type of content based around an evaluation of the season and based around fans, key media, and former players evaluating what transpired during the regular season and assigning a value 1 to 12 to the players on that roster. LeBron gets his money. He just has to earn a bit more of it with his actual performance during the season, during the playoffs. We'll get into that tomorrow and tie this whole thing together. But I just wanted to walk you through some simple concepts and ideas as it relates to the regular season, just small. We're going to eliminate the in-season tournament. We're going to eliminate All-Star Weekend. We're going to tighten up the regular season schedule, get it down to 69 games. We're going to replace that reduction. I think what did I have it? I think they play 1,230 regular season games now under the 82 game schedule. I believe my math on that is correct. And my 69 game schedule, they play 1,035. So how do we replace the 230 games or 200 games that they're losing? Off-season content that has a chance to draw much higher ratings than the actual regular season games. And then you sell that content back to these TV networks and Apple and Amazon and Netflix. I don't want to go too far with it. Don't miss part 2 of this. Skap and I will be back tomorrow explaining more of this. We're not done with today's show. There's some things in the sports world that I want to cover outside of the NBA at the back end of this show. Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders are having their jersey numbers retired at Colorado. We'll talk about that. Paige Bueckers brought her bottom chick, teammate Azzi Fudd, to the WNBA draft last night, and that's why you weren't watching, didn't care. Paige Bueckers has joined the movement, and it's no wonder everybody loves Paige Bueckers. And even though she's white, she's on Team Scissor, and that's all that matters. If Caitlin Clark would get on Team Scissor, she would be just as beloved in the WNBA as Paige Bueckers. We'll talk about that in a second. And then I'm going to end the show talking about Stephen A. Smith and some content that I've seen like, oh boy, I'm under Stephen A. Smith's skin. Before we do that, we'll take a little break so I can catch my breath. But before I do that, I want to remind you guys about why I look so good and why I'm having so much success with my workouts. This morning, I'm not lying, this morning, I did 3 sets of cardio between 15 and 20 minutes. Took a little 20-minute break in between on my Stairmaster just to get my engine revved up. And part of the reason I'm able to do this and I can walk around and function is because of my good friends at Relief Factor. You guys have heard me talking about Relief Factor and these little magic pills that help me. It's not magic. They're not magic. These are natural, all natural, 100% drug-free supplements that fight pain and inflammation. Inflammation is the source of most of your pain and virtually all diseases. And I've incorporated this into my routine. I share with you all that my dear friend, Jeffrey Steele, guy's 63, bikes every day, every morning, 30 miles every morning. He's 63 years old. And he's over at my house and he whips out his little Relief Factor. And I'm like, what are you doing? You got Relief Factor? You still some of my Relief Factor? He goes, no, man, I've been taking this forever. He had a friend that had knee surgery, and the only thing that provided his friend relief was this, Relief Factor. Skap, do you work out?
I do. Daily, every day.
But you're so young, it probably doesn't matter to you. But anyway, my friend, that's Jeffrey Steele, the country music songwriter and singer legend. He tells me about his friend. You can get on the same program as me and Jeff. Quit compromising and think, oh, I'm just too old. I have to give up this, I have to give up that. I can't take those long walks with my wife like I used to. I can't do this or I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you fight the inflammation. It's only $20 for the 3-week quick start. That's just your trial to see if Relief Factor works for you. Doesn't work for everybody, but it works for about 70% of people, and they see those results within the first 3 weeks. It's only $20. Everybody's got a $20 bill that they can spend to see if they can fight that pain and inflammation. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800-4RELIEF. Or visit relieffactor.com. When me and Skap come back, we'll be talking about Shedeur Sanders, his number being retired at Colorado. Next. Men, it's time to rise. Our country, our faith, our future, all under attack. I'm bringing the boldest voices to Nashville. Roll Call 3.0 is your call to action. Join me, join Tucker, and let's take a stand together. May 2nd and 3rd in Nashville. I am Jason Whitlock, your host.
Went without so that he could give you an abundant life. Now it's time for you to evade the ego trip so that someone else can live better. Amen.
It's necessary that we decide to become men of character, of godly intent.
He gives power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increases strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary. Young men shall utterly fall. Jason, I know you called it to preach off, but I feel like preaching up in here right about now.
All right, welcome back. Before Skap and I talk about Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, I do want to remind you all, or not remind you, I want to tell you all just a little additional information on roll call. And hopefully this week or at the end of this week, I'll get into this a bit more in detail. I've made a miscalculation in messaging as it relates to roll call, not factoring in what Donald Trump's election win and all the things that are going on in the culture war space. And just quite frankly, by me not factoring in and explaining to you all, like, hey, the culture war is not over. But many people are relaxing because, hey, Trump's in office and things are going our way. And so people are relaxing. I'm tapping back into messaging when everybody felt like we're losing the culture war. Now that we got a little momentum, people are relaxed. And so in order to counter my bad messaging, not realizing where you guys are at mentally and how you need an update on, hey, what's really going on in the culture war, I want you all to go to fearlessrollcall.com right now. I want you to use the promo code 997. You're going to get half off any ticket that we have of VIP events, roll call, promo code 997, half off, ticket price. I'm going to eat a major bullet on this because I need you all at roll call. And so basically, I'm going to sponsor many of you. I'm just going to do it. Me and friends of mine that have joined me in sponsoring roll call. These prices, very affordable. I'm going to eat the bullet. A handful of my friends are going to eat the bullet because clearly I need to re-explain to you all where we're at in the culture war, why we must remain engaged, and I just want to be more invitational and not, this ain't about, this is me. I screwed up with the messaging, didn't realize, again, I love to keep my finger on the pulse of where the culture war is going. I messed up and don't have the right messaging for this year. So I want you to come hear the messaging and where we're at and why we need to band together. And I'm going to do it at my own expense. This will sound crazy, and some of you, but I love you that much that I'm going to take the hit here. I got a couple friends helping me out. We're going to take the hit. So you can come to roll call. Go to fearlessrollcall.com, punch in the promo code 997. It's extremely affordable for you to come to roll call. All right, Skap, Deion Sanders, and I had a friend who is a former Colorado football player reach out to me. It's not Joel Klatt. I don't want anybody to think I heard this from Joel Klatt. I've been at this a long time. I know a lot of people that played football at Colorado. This is a former Colorado football player who was really good at Colorado, played in the NFL for a long time. His understanding of how Travis Hunter and Shedeur, but Travis Hunter won the Heisman Trophy. I don't think anyone can complain about Travis Hunter getting his number retired. He won the Heisman Trophy. He had a good 2-year run at Colorado. But Deion's boy, Shedeur, and immediately, his career just ended 3-4 months ago in late December. They got the brakes beat off of them by BYU. They finished the season 9-4. Shedeur's 2-year run at quarterback, they won 13 games and lost 12. I think he was second-team All-American. I don't know how many second-team All-Americans immediately within months get their jerseys retired or their numbers retired. But I've been told that this was part of the negotiating with Deion, that Deion just got a new contract, and part of the negotiation was my boy's number gets retired as well. And he gets to go down in history as, I think he ranks maybe number 7 on Colorado's all-time passing list. He's right behind Joel Klatt. Joel Klatt had nothing to do with anything I'm saying. He's not the person that called and told me this. But Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders, and he's making a mockery of Colorado's won a national championship. They have great former players: Eric Bieniemy, Michael Westbrook, Cordell Stewart. And this guy's getting his number retired. Nobody's going to wear number 2 anymore at Colorado because this guy had a cup of coffee 2 years at Colorado and won 13 games and lost 12. I saw this yesterday, and I just fell out laughing. And this is where I'm going to throw in, and I don't know if we got it, but this is where I'm going to throw in. It's like, it ain't just Deion's ego that's out of control. It's all these coaches. I look at Bill Belichick and him parading around with his 24, 25-year-old girlfriend at the University of North Carolina, and all these guys have gone mad. They make too much money, and they've just, no one has any values, any standards anymore. This was I can't figure out what I think is crazier: Shedeur Sanders' number getting retired, or 73-year-old Bill Belichick giving his 24-year-old girlfriend some sort of job where she's on the field in boots and some sort, like she's headed out to the nightclub. Which one's crazier? Who's got a bigger ego problem, Deion or Bill Belichick?
Well, I mean, a lot of things aren't adding up here, Jason. Second-team All-American, 7th all-time in passing yards, 13-12 record, obliterated by 3 touchdowns in his one and only bowl game. Yeah, a lot of things are not really checking the boxes to jersey retirement. So that looks pretty outrageous. It actually, I hate to draw the correlation here for old Deion, but it kind of reeks of a little bit of the LeBron-Bronny situation that we've seen in Los Angeles, kind of hamstringing the Lakers, holding them hostage, forcing them to draft Bronny. It kind of sounds like what Deion's negotiations involved with having Junior's jersey hung from the rafters. But Jason, with all due respect to the great Bill Belichick, I think I have to go towards Belichick being more outrageous. I mean, gone are the days of the solemn, like Chuck Knowles roaming the sidelines in the NFL. Like, Bill Belichick was one of the last bastions of that, wasn't he? He was supposed to be the last football guy, the last business-only kind of guy, and now he is the last guy I would have ever anticipated would have his 24-year-old arm candy patrolling the sidelines with him. It is sheer and utter madness. I think, in all due respect to Deion and his never-ending, expanding ego, I think Bill here looks even worse and more pitiful to me.
I actually agree with you, and that's hard for me to say. I think, and it justifies Deion's insanity. Deion is sitting there saying, they complaining about me putting my son in, retiring his jersey. Are you looking at Belichick? And here's what Deion's saying. If a black coach brought his 24-year-old plaything on the sideline, blah, 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 blah. And I don't think it's true, but that's what he's saying. Certainly I would be sitting here complaining if Tony Dungy took a college coaching job and was parading around a 24-year-old, my new girlfriend, put the picture of the woman in the boots and all this. Look, none of this makes sense in terms of 73 and 24. But she can't this is how she's dressed, helping Bill Belichick at, I think, their spring game or some practice or whatever. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. If you're going to have a 24-year-old plaything, can she not dress more appropriately than this? Bill Belichick was the guy that hated distractions. You're telling me this isn't a distraction? You're telling me you're not. He doesn't even have the street smarts to say, hey, you know what? Parade my 24-year-old girlfriend around a bunch of 21, 22-year-old jocks and athletes who have no sexual discipline. No, and I'm going off memory here because it was 40 years ago, I believe, or 39 years ago when I was a college athlete. But the trainers, the female trainers that taped your ankles and brought you ice and cold water to drink, they were always a target among the football team and players. And they weren't dressed like this. And so if you, Bill is putting a target on this girl's back. Because if you think those players aren't sitting there going, oh, if I could tap Bill Belichick's girlfriend, that I'll be high five. Because this is what the players do to each other. We call it snaking. They snake each other. You know, and this is why you don't bring your girlfriend around the other athletes. And black, white, whatever, the athletes, they're hyper competitive in virtually everything. And at that age, the competition goes way off the field. I'm blown away by Belichick. I'm blown away by Deion. I just think we're going to see more and more of this. Belichick has set the tone and set a standard for all coaches. That, like, it's now appropriate to put your sugar baby on payroll.
It's insane. I mean, with all the younger coaches we have, too, I mean, you've got Sean McVay, his wife's some kind of IG model of some sort. But of all the guys, the younger, era of guys that have come up, it's this guy, this 73-year-old Patriot Way guy, the guy that didn't even want his players stepping out in interviews. He basically controlled the interviews for all these guys for years to, again, avoid distraction. And now, as you point out, this is what we get from that guy. And to your point, could you imagine if one of the players does tap the girlfriend? What kind of a nightmare PR situation that would be? Is Bill Belichick tapering playing minutes because he thinks that maybe this guy tapped his girl? It is insane, the storylines that are now opened up by this. I cannot wrap my head around it for the life of me. Like when the story broke and we saw the Ring camera, I don't know if you, this little 24-year-old thing, this happened, this has been going on for months, Jason.
Yeah, maybe more than a year.
Yeah, and when the story first broke, it was Belichick caught on Ring camera. You remember this? He was like leaving her house with no shirt on.
Yes.
Like, it's just ridiculous at that point. And then takes her to the ESPYs, he's parading her all over the place. I thought this was like a little couple-week fling or something like that. This is like an ongoing relationship now, and like you said, she's on the freaking payroll now. It's craziness.
It's a humiliation ritual or something. It's a late life crisis. It's a man in full-blown insecurity. And I'm asking this in all seriousness because there's a woman that follows me on Twitter. Her name's Andrea. She's a former Mizzou cheerleader. She's quite familiar with my work and, because she's a big sports fan, but I don't know who she's married to. I respect her. Anything she's ever tweeted at me or I saw her on her Twitter page always seemed reasonable, but she tweeted at me when I complained about this with Belichick in the past 24, 48 hours. She was like, hey, there's nothing to rejuvenate a middle-aged man, and he's not middle-aged, but she's calling him middle-aged, like a young woman, and she kind of defended it, and it like blew my mind. And so where I'm like, at 73, and I hate to talk, one, he needs to be getting married and getting rejuvenated that way. But if he were in a relationship with a 40-year-old woman, I'd have nothing to say about it. Okay, Bill, but he's got him a pretty young thing. 40, that's a grown woman. This is a grad student. He's on a college campus. There are other 24-year-old girls out there. Am I wrong for thinking like, hey, man, God has a 40-year-old, 39, 42. I'm telling you, I wouldn't bat an eye. I wouldn't utter a word of complaint. Is that reasonable?
I think so. I mean, quite frankly, there's certain years that seem more acceptable or less acceptable versus, based on the differential in age.
Yes.
But just in terms of your individual age, yes, 40, 39, 40, like that seems just more appropriate to me than dating someone at his age that could be like a grandchild. It's kind of creepy, honestly. And now he's thrust her, for lack of a better term, into the national spotlight here with this story. It's so weird, Jason.
And so I don't think this Belichick thing is going to work at all. I'm really thinking this North Carolina thing is going to be one of the most embarrassing things. I think he's going to further damage his brand. Here's the last thing I'll say about it, or try to land the plane on this, because I want to get a couple other topics in. But I think Belichick was so offended that he got replaced by the linebacker, Gerard Mayo.
Yeah.
Gerard Mayo. And I think he knew how incompetent Gerard Mayo was. He got so outraged. It's like, hey, you want to fire me and replace me with somebody? Fine. But Gerard Mayo, and in his mind, I don't know if he's right, but the Gerard Mayo got fired after 1 year. He's like, you were plotting to replace me, had some kind of clause that this guy was going to replace me, and you didn't even evaluate him. And I was like, the first press conference Gerard Mayo had with Robert Kraft, and when they weren't on the same page as it relates to, here's the owner saying, hey, I think we need to move towards a colorblind way of addressing things. And his coach that he just hired says, yep, no, I see race because I want to see racism. I was like, wow, who hires a leader that doesn't reflect their values? Who's been convinced that diversity means empowering people who you oppose philosophically at the core? And I think Belichick was so infuriated. Like, they just hired someone incompetent that doesn't have my value. He's so irate that he's just like, F it. I'm going to give in to my most base feelings, emotions, desires. And that's how you end up with a 24-year-old side chick that you're parading around. It's like, she's like and I'm not trying to be offensive here, but I just want you to think about it. It's like people, and I'm not defending this, sex is between married people, in my opinion. I don't have an opinion on that. That's God's opinion. I defer to that. But she's like the side piece that is like a pet, a dog. Anytime you put a dog in a car, he wants to stick his head out the window to make sure that everybody can see, I'm riding shotgun. That's what he's doing with his side piece. He's got her out here bragging about, hey, Bill Belichick's got a trophy girlfriend who's old enough to be his granddaughter. Amazing.
I can't even wrap my head around it. Like, if someone's 10 years younger than me, let's even say, there's a generational disconnect to some degree. Like, they don't understand the jokes necessarily, the movie references, the shows, the music.
I like them 10 years younger than me, so you're being very offensive, Skap. I like them 10 to 15 years younger than me, but go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, how is there not, what are these people, what are they talking about, Jason? Like, I understand there's other things going on than talking, but I mean, for over a year, there has to be some kind of conversational elements going on between these two. What in the world are they talking about with that kind of a gap?
I don't know. Film, I guess. I have no idea. Just about how much joy and ecstasy he feels every time they go to bed, I guess. I'm gonna stop here. I've done enough with that. I want you to watch Skap. Paige Bueckers last night, the #1 overall pick of the WNBA draft. They've been on a campaign for the last 3 years to argue that Paige Bueckers, the UConn star, is actually better than Caitlin Clark. And last night, I think we figured out why that campaign's been going on, because it's not based in reality. Paige Bueckers is a very good college player, probably going to be a very good WNBA player, but she ain't on Caitlin Clark's level. in terms of excitement or accomplishment. And I know they just won a national championship, but she played with two players that are either just as good, and Sarah Strong's probably better than her or will be better than her. Caitlin Clark took, a bunch of girls from Iowa to back-to-back national championship games. Regardless, what Paige Bueckers does far better and more often, and something that Caitlin Clark, I don't believe, has done, is Paige Bueckers scissors. And seems to scissor with her teammate, Ozzie Fudd, who will come back to UConn for one more year next year. And so Paige Bueckers showed up at the draft, and let's watch her, I think, on the red carpet with her teammate, Ozzie Fudd. Let's play that clip. I take it based on, do we have the picture where you can see Paige Bueckers caressing the buttocks of Ozzie Fudd on the red carpet? Let's put, there we go. That's Paige Bueckers caressing the buttocks of Ozzie Fudd, her teammate at UConn. There you go. And, if I were Bill, that's how Bill Belichick would be posed up with Ozzie Fudd, who's probably 22 years old. If Bill Belichick were on the red carpet with Ozzie Fudd, that's how Bill Belichick would have his hand. And when I looked on the internet, there's been rumors about this relationship for a long time. Allegedly, a lot of conversation about this relationship. It's clear to see who the alpha is, or the I don't know who I wouldn't say the man or the she. Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I want to play this other video. Here's Paige Bueckers behind the scenes at the draft, walking to the table where she goes to sit down next to Ozzie Fudd, and quickly tells Ozzie that, hey, I'm mic'd up. Be careful what you say. Let's play that clip.
Thank you so much. All right, we take a look here at the draft stage. I mean, they're all lined up. Some of the invited draftees to be joined by Giddy Candidate and Georgia A. who has a very special guest, Russell Westbrook.
All Paige Bueckers is lacking in that man suit is a big gold chain and some sort of, and she'd look like, Jalen Rose or some of these other guys that all dress up on NBA draft night. That's all she's lacking. And a year or two ago, there were stories that Paige Bueckers had some boyfriend that I think was an athlete on another team in another sport, but I think it's clear as day she has switched teams. And I think that's why so many WNBA players are going to greet Paige Bueckers with open arms, even though she's white. It's because she seems to be on the same sexual team as everyone else in the WNBA, or the majority of WNBA players. I was glad I didn't watch the WNBA draft last night, and I think as all the progress that they made last year, I don't know if you remember how feminine the WNBA draft was. Ladies all dressed up nice and feminine. Clearly, with Paige Bueckers at the top of the draft, they went a different route. She dressed as a little man. Good luck to her and all that. But Skap, this is what turns me off about the WNBA. It's someone put it in my tweet, mentions that, hey, look, the WNBA is a lesbian psyop, Jason. And are you going to participate in the lesbian psyop by continuing to promote this brand and this league? And I have real questions about whether I can do it. And I like Caitlin Clark, but I'm not super confident that Caitlin Clark is going to survive the culture in the WNBA. Most of the time, that culture, the culture you exist in, eventually wins out.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, you've referenced a couple of times my age in relation to you being a little bit younger, but still, I'm at a certain age where it used to be more of a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing, not just in sports, but in society as well. Now it's worn on your sleeve, like it has to be some kind of a patch that you carry along. And quite frankly, that is off-putting to the vast majority of fans. Again, working this conversation back to the fan standpoint, like you don't want to hear or see these kinds of things, regardless of what you think about it. Just leave it to yourself. Like keep it, you know, some semblance of privacy, Jason. And as it relates to Paige here, look, far be it from me to impugn her if she wants to become an all-scissors American first team member here. But someone on your own team? That's my major takeaway. What are the implications here, you know, from a team standpoint, interlocker room kind of relations during the games? Obviously, they won the championship, so it didn't stop them from doing that. But isn't there some level of decorum, of professionality that we can at least put forth here and not be banging teammates? Is that what direction we're heading to, Jason?
It's never talked about. Never talked about. But that's one of the biggest issues in women's college basketball, women's softball. It's the sexual complications of these teams and the malfeasance. And people are going to get upset when I say this, but I've been around it long enough, talked to people involved in the game. The stuff that goes on between assistant coaches and players, and occasionally between head coaches and players. And, you know, one of the most celebrated coaches in all of women's college basketball, there are stories, conversations about her and former players. It's rampant in these sports, and it's never covered. And I'm not defending any of the things that are covered. I'm not defending them, but it's like people will talk about, I think it's Dr. Larry Nassar maybe at Michigan State, and how he sexually abused gymnasts and other athletes at Michigan State, and love that stuff gets exposed. When have we ever heard a story about a coach who, young athletes coming to that campus, and the female Bill Belichick's that want a taste of some pretty young thing? It's rampant in these sports. It's never discussed because you can say nothing that makes the alphabet mafia uncomfortable. They don't have to address their issues and problems. Again, they got a special status. And just to be crystal clear, if you watch this show, I talk about the special status that black people have in American society. And we get away without ever talking about our issues, the destruction of family, and all the complications that come along with that. This morning, I said something to Shamika about some video I saw where there was some black dude that was talking about pedophilia. He said something about how, you know, I bet you in this room, and I couldn't tell how many people are in this room, I bet you there's 3 pedophiles. This stuff is never talked about. When you remove the nuclear family, the supervision of mom and dad watching over the kids that they produce, 2 parents supervising their kids tamps down the chances of sexual malfeasance, molestation, and abuse. When you reduce it to 1 parent supervising who has a full-time job, or maybe has 2 or 3 baby daddies and a bunch of kids, and none of the baby daddies are in the home, there's less supervision, there's more malfeasance and dysfunction and molestation. Never talked about. And this is why, didn't I already reference the SNL skit on the SNL skit where it's like, well, damn, Saturday Night Live has legalized discussing like 2 men getting married or pretending to be married and buying a kid or adopting a kid. Who thinks this is a good idea? Who? You know how little sexual discipline men have? The only sexual discipline we really have is 1, submitting to God, and 2, answering to a girlfriend or wife. That's it. You remove God and you remove a wife, men have no sexual discipline. but let's let them adopt children. Let's let them bring children into their home. This is insanity. And I know I'm going super big picture here and wasn't intending to, but I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to leave you out of this, Skap, because I don't want to get you in too much trouble. But I go back to the common sense position. Not everything is for everybody. And we keep making this work. Well, everything is for everybody. And so two men who pleasure each other in their rear ends, we should give them babies. And we should let them pretend to be married. Not every, I say it over and over, y'all always think I'm trying to be funny, I'm not. Size 36 jeans are not meant for me, and I would look like a fool trying to squeeze into them. Not everything is for everybody. And when we're watching people squeeze into positions and roles that they have no business in, we're just increasing the dysfunction of this country. So, wow, I just went really big picture on Paige Bueckers, and I know some of you, they're just two college girls, leave them alone, they're consenting adults. And you know what? I'm good with that. But let's talk about all the chaos and dysfunction that's in these women's sports, because there is no sexual discipline. There is no accountability. You can't talk about any of this. All you can talk about is toxic masculinity and what, oh, that man sexually harassed so-and-so, and he said something that made her uncomfortable. He cracked a joke that she didn't like and made her feel inferior. We need to stop that. Not, hey, what about some of these coaches in women's sports who are dipping their hands into the kids that they manage and supervise? Never discussed. All right, when I come back, we'll wrap the show with me talking about Stephen A. Smith and the latest video that I find very, very interesting. And it's a defense of Stephen A. Smith. It's a smear of me. It's proof that I'm under the skin of Stephen A. Smith. We'll talk about that next.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. There's something bad going on with American men. It's been obvious for a while. It's measurable in a million different ways, but it's also right in front of your face. For that reason, I'm joining Jason on Friday, May 2nd in Nashville for the Roll Call 3.0 conference, and I hope to see you there.
Join us at Fearless Roll Call 3.0. Real men, real conversations, real purpose. Tickets at fearlessrollcall.com.
These words are our religion, no regrets in our decisions. We all want to go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
All right, welcome back. Let's wrap the show with me going back in on Stephen A. Smith. And I want to play you a clip that I think is definitive proof that the conversation we're having, no matter how many people put their finger on the scale as it relates to the conversation I've been having exposing Stephen A. Smith, it's having impact. I'm under the skin of Stephen A. Smith. I am really irritating Bob Iger and the folks at Disney, and Stephen A. Smith is struggling to fight back against the stuff that I'm exposing. He doesn't want to have to circle back and curse me out again and call me fat bastard and a POS and all the other stuff that he yelled and screamed. He doesn't want to do that. And so he's sending out minions to do that, to smear me, to tell lies on me. Because he wasn't anticipating this in his little presidential run, that I would read his memoir, point out 2 years ago, like, hey, this memoir is a fugazi filled with pathological lies, and it's clear as day Stephen A. Smith wants to run for president. And I'm pointing out that, Like, hey, what are these media people doing? Why are they selling Stephen A. Smith as if he's some credible politician and he's got something to say about politics that people need to hear? He doesn't like any of that. And he doesn't know how to respond because he made a fool of himself with his initial response, taping a profane 45-minute tirade at me. And the questions that I raise and keep asking people in the media, like, why aren't you asking Stephen A. Smith these questions? He's lied about a college basketball career. He's lied about a lot of his background narrative, and no one's asking a question about it. And maybe they are asking questions about it behind the scenes, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, that he was trying to get out in front of maybe someone in the print media that was going to do a profile on him. I put everybody in a tough position because Disney is doing everything they can. They put him on This Week with Jonathan Karl. He's doing interviews with Megyn Kelly and Sean Hannity, and everybody is trying to play. Bill Maher and Steve Bannon is talking about him like he's a legitimate candidate. But I'm putting pressure. Hey, ask this dude some real questions. What makes him qualified to even run for president? Never run anything. He's never led anything. He's a sports talker who does a really bad job of just keeping command of sports topics. And so their counter is to run some minions out and try to stir up a smear on me. Stephen A., send better. Bob Iger, send better. John Mitchell, who they ran out here, says and makes one of the most preposterous allegations I've ever heard about me. And I've heard preposterous allegations about me. And I've talked about, like, oh, whew, this is what you're saying about me? Deadspin wrote a story about that kid, Greg Howard, talking about how I talked abuse. He was in the hospital nearly at death's door, and I'm yelling and screaming at him and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I got emails from Greg when he's in the hospital thanking me. Hey, man, I appreciate you checking on. My family appreciates it, blah, blah, blah. What are y'all talking? And so I've had all kinds of smears. This may be the worst one. And this is John Mitchell, who is a former sports writer, probably most notably at the Washington Times. I believe he worked there for a decade, where he covered the Washington Wizards for a time. And John Mitchell and I used to be friends. And he's a black sports writer. I knew him. We were friendly. He worked at the Washington Times. We were friendly. And John, I then think at some point, lost his job at the Washington Times, ended up rebounding at the Philadelphia Inquirer, maybe in the 2010s, ended up, I think, losing his job at the Philadelphia Inquirer, maybe in the 2010s. And so around 2013, 14, when I'm at ESPN running the Undefeated, John Mitchell wanted me to hire him at the Undefeated. And we were friends, and he kept putting me in conversations where he was looking for an opportunity with the Undefeated. And John Mitchell was a beat writer. And I wasn't really looking for beat writers. I was looking at people that could write profile stories and, a bit more flowery and creative writers than John Mitchell. And at that time, because I was being set up by ESPN and the John Kozner, John Walsh, the people at ESPN were undermining me, Rob King. They were undermining me and trying to teach me a lesson for criticizing Scoop Jackson and just for being someone with a conservative point of view. At that time, I think they were only letting me hire like 10 people. And they kept delaying that process and delaying that process. I got 10, 11 hires to make. I can't hire a beat writer. And so I would dance around. I never hired John Mitchell, and he got frustrated. And that pretty much ended our friendship in 2013, 2014, around that time. And he then became a critic of mine. And he wasn't the only one. And not that Stephen A. Smith, when he was at ESPN, would have worked for the undefeated. He wouldn't have, because of my involvement. There's no way he would have done that. But he also knew there was no way I would hire him or even attempt to hire him at the undefeated, because he couldn't write, and this platform was going to be a written platform. Stephen A. Smith is not a good writer. Say another reason. Now, me and Jemele Hill had other problems, as I've shared with you all on this show before, about, you know, her fabricating or taking something, not fabricating, taking a story about me that she heard from a former friend of mine named Terrence Harris that, you know, again, this was the old version of me. And I had shared a story with Terrence about being in Atlanta and hooking up with some stripper. And Jemele Hill starts trying to email the guy that was running the big lead, Jason McIntyre at that time, and saying, Whitlock out here pretending like he's the moral authority, and he was just down in Atlanta and hooked up with some stripper. And, you know, she writes this to Jason McIntyre. At that time, I'm friendly with Jason McIntyre. He tells me what she did. That's part of it. But the other reason why I had no interest in hiring Jemele, because she can't write. And she would, her ego, and a lot of these guys with a lot of experience who've been carried by DEI and by affirmative action, they were never held to any sort of writing standard. This is how they cripple black sports or black media people. They never force them to develop and become good. They never force them. They never hold them to a standard. They just rewrite their material and hand them positions and awards and just pretend like these guys are good. Well, I have a different mentality. I wanted people that were willing to learn and willing to be developed. And that was going to take some tough skin and some tough feedback. And someone with Jemele's ego, you know, someone like me starts pointing out like, hey man, this writing's primitive, your thoughts are primitive. Hey, let's try this or that. It would have never worked. And now I got some angry black woman who I'm trying to hold to a professional standard, and I've just put myself in harm's way. And so there was a lot of these people that knew, like, I knew the truth about them. They're out pretending like they're at the top of the profession and they're super qualified to do this or that. And I was like, man, I'm going to be held to a standard, and I got to have super qualified people, or I have to have people that I can develop. Anyway, long story short, no interest in bringing on John Mitchell. He's a beat writer, too experienced to get the kind of feedback that I would be giving, ego too involved to get the kind of feedback that I would be giving. And so he hasn't liked me. And so this week, there's, I think, this woman named Karen Hunter that used to maybe work in Philadelphia when Stephen A. Smith was a sports writer in Philadelphia. I think Stephen A. has referenced her as sometimes she's a tiny bit critical of Stephen A. They used to be friends, but she tries to gatekeep Stephen A. and his opinions. She has a Sirius XM show. She has some sort of podcast with a pretty decent following. I think her podcast maybe has, I'm going off memory, 250,000 subscribers. Anyway, she put out an interview that she did on radio with John Mitchell, telling some story where John Mitchell is just flat out lying about me. So let's play SOT number 3 so you can hear John Mitchell's story, and then I'm going to tell you why it's completely farcical what he's saying. Play the clip.
Listen, I just want to give you a little insight into who Jason Whitlock is, because I was a sports writer. I worked at Philadelphia Inquirer. I worked at the far right-leaning Washington Times years ago, and I knew Jason in the early 2000s when he was working at Kansas City Star. And it was a tight fraternity of sports writers, very close to Stephen A. And what I will say is Jason Whitlock once pulled me aside when he was a columnist, and he told me, and was sincere, he said, John, I am the best black sports columnist in the country. And at the time, you know, Stephen A. was writing in Philly, Mike Wilbon was in Washington, Kevin Blackstone was in Dallas, and there were a number of us.
Rob Parker was out there, Brian Burwell.
Rob Parker, the great Brian Burwell. And I told him, I said, and as I responded to him, I said, listen, why are you creating a subdivision of black sports columnists and you're placing them below the white sports columnists who dominated those jobs? You know, the Lupicas, the guys who, you know, all those people.
Who can't write, by the way, who not a great writer, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, and I co-signed.
No, so I'm one of the few people who've seen raw copy. Okay, I've seen raw copy. All right, I know what the raw copy looked like. I'm one of the few people who know that they brought over an editor when they brought a certain writer over because he couldn't come by himself without an editor.
Damn.
And I call that the reverse affirmative action of sports writing.
Yeah.
You know, they have to. They are placed on a pedestal, and they have to prove that they can't do it. Where black writers have to prove you can do it to get the opportunity. But I told him, I said, what you're doing is you're taking yourself and all these great black sports writers, and you're creating a subdivision below these white boys. And he looked at me, you know, like I had 5 heads. And I said, what you're saying is these people are better than you, that they're better than us as black people. And when I told him that didn't sit very well with him. And whatever friendship was there was gone forever. But that just shows you that he is one of these self-loathing.
Yeah, I was going to say, he doesn't like himself very much.
That's one of the most amazing and most preposterous stories that's ever been told about me. Ever. I want you all to think about me, and for those of you that have been on the Whitlock journey for a long time, think about me maybe you followed me for 30 years, maybe you followed me for 20, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 10, maybe it's only 5 years. You've been on the journey with me and you followed me. Tell me at any point in my career, when was the moment that I thought I wasn't the best sports writer in America? Tell me the moment. When wasn't I making the argument that, like, y'all don't want to admit it, this system that y'all devised, the Associated Press of Sports Editors, APSE, the entire industry wants to deny that I'm the best at this sports writing deal. And I don't say that to diminish anyone else. But when you talk about someone that would write opinion pieces, original opinion pieces, at the highest level, would drive discussion and news with his opinion pieces, would write something about Don Imus and that nappy-headed whole situation that would put him on Oprah Winfrey, the only sports writer to go on Oprah Winfrey's show to talk about what he wrote in his sports column. The only sports writer to ever win the Scripps Howard's newspaper award for commentary. When was the moment that I felt inferior or expressed any insecurity about anybody in the sports writing profession? If I wrote and again, this may be ego out of control because it was, because the glory actually is God's, not mine, as I've shared with you as in my deeper understanding and deeper faith journey, that I've been given a gift from God. It's not me. But back when I was younger and less mature, I thought it was me and had no problem telling any and everybody, look what I did. I'm the best at this. I wrote a piece, and I can't remember the year, but you can look it up. I'm sure it's out there available. I'm sure someone wrote some blog piece off of it like, hey, man, I should have won the Pulitzer Prize in 2007, 2008 for the stuff I wrote on Don Imus, the stuff I wrote on the Jenna Six, the stuff I wrote that year in 2007 that had more impact than any sports writer in the history of America, other than John Feinstein's A Season on the Brink. That's a book. But in terms of someone writing a sports column, no, that year I had in 2007, and you could throw a few more years in terms of impact and driving discussion and making themselves a national voice from some city like Kansas City. Everybody else is doing it from New York, LA, or Chicago. I'm doing it from Kansas City, flyover country, teams that weren't winning anything. It's not like, and I'm not, again, I've told you all, Bill Simmons is my favorite columnist, but this man benefited from being associated with Boston sports, where the Red Sox were winning everything, the Celtics were winning championships, and the Patriots were winning everything. He rode those sports teams to a level of relevance. Super talented, funny, love his work. But every part of my career was in objection to, like, man, y'all hyping up these dudes, but ain't nobody doing what I'm doing. Writing opinion piece. And when I wanted to, would write profile stories. The Allen Iverson piece I wrote for Vibe stands the test of time. When I wanted to edit other people's work, when I wanted to help and elevate other people, there's a woman that won the APSE sports columnist writing deal that I edited and or rewrote the pieces that she used to win the APSE award. And you think there was some moment where I was sitting around like, oh, these white sports writers are better? Ask Mike Lupica if I thought he was better than me. We fell out on the sports reporters, and they ran me off the sports reporter, because I stood up to Mike Lupica and was like, yeah, I'm from Kansas City, and yeah, you've been on this show longer, but I ain't shutting up for nobody. My opinion is relevant, needs to be heard on this show. It was the whole steroids narrative that Lupica was trying to reduce it to Barry Bonds, and I was expanding the conversation to like, no, this is all of sports, man, you're naive. And when my narrative proved to be true, they got embarrassed, wanted to put me in my place, he and Joe Valerio, and they ran me up off the show. And then I came back and criticized Mike Lupica. I've criticized Mitch Album. But this man wants to get on somewhere on radio. Whitlock was diminishing himself and black sports, right? Because the opposite is exactly what happened. John Mitchell made the mistake of saying to me, you're the best black sports writer in America. And I said, bro, nah, bro, take the black out of that. I'm the best sports writer in America. Don't limit me. What's Lupica doing, Mitch Albom doing, that I haven't done? Anybody that's followed my career knows that's my mentality. Anybody that's followed my career and seen me expose and piss off all the Mitch Albom, I was calling him out when I was in Ann Arbor in 92 and 93. Hey, his Fab Five book, this is a fabrication. He's pretending like Chris Webber couldn't afford McDonald's. And I'm like, I've been to Chris Webber's apartment. This dude's apartment is plush, laid out. He's living better than the sports writers covered. This is a joke. And I started calling him Myth Album. Went to war with Lupica. Went to war with all these guys that were, Joe Posnanski right in my own city. When I took him down over his Joe Paterno book and all the myths and exaggerated and fixed narratives that he was using to win these awards and blah. I was like, this entire system is rigged against me, and I said it in the appeal. I was like, it's rigged against Wilbon, and it's rigged against Dan Le Batard. How can Jason Whitlock, Mike Wilbon, and Dan Le Batard never win the APSE award for column writing when you talking about three of the best that ever did it? Never won. Le Batard's Cuban. And back before he turned completely woke, used to write some of the best stuff that's ever been printed in the newspaper sports section. And I argued it in print or online for everybody to see, like, you know, Wilbon, Lebitard, and myself, never winning the APSE column writing award. This is a joke. Hop in my emails and just confirm my sanity. Hop in the chat, confirm my sanity. This story that John Mitchell told is one of the most irrational, disingenuous, pathological lies ever told. There's nobody that has followed me or my career. There's no one that's ever knows anything about sports writing and my take on it that would believe that I was sitting around like, yeah, I'm inferior to Lupica and these guys, that Wilbon's inferior to these guys. Now, what I have said, Stephen A. Smith can't write to save his life, and that editors have to rewrite damn near everything he tries to write, and he's been propped up and he's a fraud. What I have said, Scoop Jackson is an embarrassment to sports writers, and what is ESPN doing promoting this guy like he's one of the top sports columnists in the country? The guy can barely write a complete sentence. I have said that. Have I said Jamel Hill, a little bit of talent, but all this hype and pretending like she's got something super important to say about the sports world? Miss me with all of that. Yes, I have called out people that have been overvalued out of some liberal control system of the people that they prefer are the helpless people that are dependent upon their help just to do their job, because you can control those people. Y'all got to help me with my, because I saw this clip posted on YouTube and the hidden story, or what Jason Whitlock is hiding, and Karen Hunter and John Mitchell, and I listened to this and my mouth fell to the floor, and then I'm reading the comments and all these people are buying it. And I know these systems are rigged, and I know people believe the last thing that they heard, but just apply any common sense. That what I've told you on this show about how my ego was out of control and how I lacked any humility before I finally submitted. But even in submission, I'll be like, man, what God put in me to do as a sports writer, it does, it will, it has stood the test of time. The piece I wrote for Playboy magazine about Incarceration Nation stands the test of time. You can read it today. It was written in 2007, 2008. You can read it today. Stands the test of time. What I wrote about Don Ives stands the test of time. The Genesis stands the test of time. The funny columns I wrote about Pussy Galore stand the test of time. What I did in Kansas City that's never been done inspired the Kansas City Star to turn and to spend money on its sports set stands the test of time. It's not a black-white issue. It's an excellence issue, and it's what God put me in position to do. And to sit here and for someone to argue that Jason Whitlock thought he was inferior and that Mike Wilbon was inferior and all these other people, that's a joke. And anybody with a brain knows it. It's an indication. Because John Mitchell, as he said, great friends with Stephen A. Smith. He's been under different names. He's been in the chat on our YouTube page for years, taking little pot shots and trolling me. Man's upset. I didn't give him a job in 2013-14. Man's got his head stuck up Stephen A. Smith's rear end. The man has a writing career, a media career that didn't go the way he planned, and I'll offer him some grace. John Mitchell at one point got very ill and had some health issues. But this man is upset that I believe he now works for the Philadelphia Department of Prisons in their public relations campaign or whatever. That ain't my fault, John. And telling these lies for Stephen A. Smith, these obvious lies. You should be better than that. I'm not surprised that you're not, because I've been following you and seeing what you've been trying to troll me over YouTube and every place else. I'm not surprised. But this is a joke. They need to take that video down, play an excerpt of this, Karen Hunter, something. That's a joke. And my own written history and the way I've carried myself in the media, ain't nobody buying that. Nobody real buying that. So Stephen A., do better. Bob Iger, do better. Send someone more credible and make lies up about me more credible than, yeah, Jason Whitlock thought he was inferior, and he told, he got upset with John Mitchell because John Mitchell told him he wasn't inferior. I'm going to call out the name of someone who's uninvolved, but it's just someone that if they're being honest, would listen to what John Mitchell said and fall out of their chair laughing. It's a guy named David Cummings. He used to work at ESPN. We used to be friends. He used to work for the New York Post, I believe, years ago. But David Cummings and I used to, when he was away from ESPN at one point, I was giving him freelance work when I was at Fox Sports. And he's around, he's in the same age bracket as me and John Mitchell. And I believe if David Cummings is in a position to be honest, he would have said, like, you'd have been better off saying Whitlock weighs 180 pounds than saying he thought he was inferior to Mike Lupica, Mitch Albom, Joe Posner, any of these people. And again, I'm not diminishing it because, you know, there's obviously some really great white sports writers. And some of these guys were very good, even the guys I'm being critical of. But I don't think they did what I did. Not in the newspaper. John Feinstein wrote some books. They're, you know, but when it comes to this newspaper thing, with headwinds directed right at me, with editors and people trying to diminish me, but even with all that, none of that mattered. What God allowed me to do in the newspaper industry won't be touched. And I'm sorry for letting my ego and forcing me to say that, but oh boy, come up with a better smear. All right, I'm done here. Our work is done here. We'll see you tomorrow with part 2 of how to fix the NBA. We'll play tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I just want.